What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Tuxrosh, back on Fightful Overbooked for another episode of Love and Wrestling. And I'm joined today by a very good friend of mine, a name you know. I'm joined by the one and only Dom from Soundsphere, WrestleSphere, Give Me a Whole Yeah, and a load of other places that I'm not going to begin to list. So how are you doing today, Dom?
Oh mate, I'm so good. I've got a touch of the hay fever. We're in the midst of British summer, so we've probably got about three or four more days of sun. But other than that, I'm doing very well. We just came off a wicked Money in the Bank. We met a lot of mutual connections. I met a lot of mutual connections. You and I have lots of wonderful people in wrestling media. We got some great interviews done, some of which are out now, some of which are coming to WrestleSphere and Soundsphere. Yeah, it's an exciting few days. It's going to be an exciting few weeks, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. Always is. I'm far too excited for 9:38 in the morning when I've got a full day ahead of me. But you are the best way I could think to start it, mate.
Likewise, my friend. As we were saying off camera, we have this problem of going, let's catch up, but bugger, we were supposed to film something. We should really press the record button.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
Anyway, so if we take this back, Dom,
yes,
do you
mate.
remember the moment that you were like, okay, wrestling's my thing now? Not when you first discovered it, but like the moment you were like, this is what I love.
There's going to be a lot of repetition here, Tom, because as you know, as someone with a disability and difference, right? So wrestling is very tied to my disability and my difference. So I have cerebral palsy, right? So when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in hospital, and I think we've talked a little bit about this in previous interviews. But this is very tied to why I love wrestling. So I'll try and be, for those people that haven't, listened to those or seen those, I'll go back over it. Wrestling to me is escapism. And wrestling to me was a way for me as a kid to when I was in hospital or when I was recovering from operations, when I was in casts or when I was in splints or calipers, however you understand them, going through that pain, watching wrestling, in the early 90s when I first got into it, was just pure escapism for me. That's what made me a fan, and that's what keeps my fandom alive. It's just that escapism that it still gives to me for this day. I have a lovely life. I've got a great job, great family, great background, etc. It's a great privilege to be able to do the things that I get to do now, and obviously speak to you. But sometimes you do need that escapism. It gets, everything gets a bit intense sometimes. I'm pretty sure everybody watching this will have moments at least like that. So for me, that, in short, in answer to your first question, because I've got them up here, because I tried to be as prepared as I could for this early start. The reason why I love wrestling, Tom, and what made me a fan and what keeps my fandom alive is that escapism. It gives me a chance to escape. It gives me a chance to escape from pain. It gives me a chance to escape from anxiety, from any element, from any times I'm experiencing depression or anything like that. Wrestling is my escapism, Tom. So that is the simplest and quickest answer I can give you for that one.
You mentioned there about covering wrestling and stuff and things like that. So how does that escapism sort of factor in when it's like almost your job, quote unquote, to cover wrestling? Does it change at all?
It's interesting. I was speaking to a great guy called Scott Future from Muscle and Fitness over the weekend. He's been a great friend, over the media junkets, and he was saying to me, I'm a journalist that covers wrestling. I'm not a wrestling journalist. Obviously, he has the Muscle and Fitness stuff, and I very much see myself in that vein. Obviously, we do music for Soundsphere, we do mental health for Wobbling About Rocking Out, which of course you are a part of as well. So wrestling journalism is a part of what I do. When I go into those media rooms, in Money in the Bank, I don't have, there's nobody pushing me. Obviously there is pressure to create good content and content that matters and content that is exciting to people or interesting to people, but there's no agenda there. I'm not trying to push anybody, for any hits or anything like that. What was that?
For scoops and stuff like that.
Exactly, for scoops, yeah. So, and I'm very privileged to be able to do that at this time in my career. If that changes, I'll address that then. But right now, we're able to tell human stories. And that's a big part of what we do at Waro. It's a big part of what we do at Soundsphere. And it's a big part of what I want to do with WrestleSphere is tell the stories. And it is as much time as I get to do that. Because sometimes, obviously, with these things, you only get a few minutes. But my point is that it doesn't really affect my enjoyment, because I'm in there speaking to these people that I admire, speaking to your LA Knights, your Baileys, etc., and I'm getting them to tell me about what about where their confidence comes from and things like that, stories that will stand the test of time. You could go back to that in 5 to 10 years. I believe Sam calls it evergreen. It's evergreen content. You could go back to that in 5, 10 years and wonder where LA Knight gets his confidence from. Yeah, and you would be able to find something in that. You see what I mean? And we're very lucky to be able to do that. So in short, Tom, or as short as I can make it, the idea is that we're telling evergreen stories and sharing those things, and that's why it doesn't affect me, because I'm not doing it for business. It's not business. I'm not worrying about what hits I'm getting at this point in my career. I'm not worrying about that, because I know that we're good enough to be in that room, and I know we're good enough to get these opportunities, and that's good enough for me. So we'll keep pushing, we'll keep driving forward. We'll keep trying to provide opportunities for other people as well. And that's what matters to me, Tom.
That's very cool to hear. So you talked about like providing opportunities for people like that. So how did we'll do a little bit of how you started covering wrestling almost.
Yeah.
How did your opportunity to start Give Me a Whole Yeah and WrestleSphere and Soundsphere come about then to segue in that?
Well, as you know, because you are the wrestling journalist, you are the wrestling media man. You know that to Give Me a Whole Yeah was a fan thing. That was just because me and Anthony wanted to talk about Anthony Nayland, of course, wonderful, one of my best friends, known him for 20 years plus now. Wanted to talk about wrestling, wanted to have that sort of enjoyment as fans. And then as that developed, we realized through Soundsphere, and obviously we have a great platform where we've interviewed, some of the biggest bands on the planet from the 1975 to Judas Priest. We've worked with members of Slipknot, etc., etc. So some of the biggest sort of rock bands and indie bands in the world. We were like, why not explore wrestling? Because years previous, I'd done work with Cy Rothstein at Impact Wrestling. In previous years, the early years of Soundsphere, and we'd worked with Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, Ric Flair, all through Impact Wrestling and all through Cy Rothstein, who is, if anybody is in wrestling journalism and doesn't know where to start, you go to Cy Rothstein, who is part of the Impact Wrestling UK press team. He will, if you've got quality content, you've got a website, you've got a channel, and you're getting good views, good hits, he will give you an opportunity. So we done that years and years ago, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I should get back into wrestling journalism. So I'd had about 5, 6, 7 years off from wrestling journalism and, just focused on Soundsphere. And then obviously started Give Me a Whole Yeah with Anthony as a fan. And then it was just like, oh, maybe I'll give this a try. Maybe I'll get back into it. And then it sort of snowballed. Obviously, the pandemic hit. We connected with Joel and the Romans, the WWE press team. And they connected us with, we had Drew McIntyre, we had Sheamus over the pandemic, we had Charlotte Flair. And then that
recording.
Recording.
No.
It's all right. That led to other opportunities, down the road, and obviously we're very appreciative of the Romans, of Joel, and the WB press team, but particularly Simon and Impact, because without them we wouldn't have been able to do any of this. So Give Me a Whole Yeah, as and doing that as fans led to me diving back into wrestling journalism with Soundsphere, and then crucially, because we were getting, interviews, music-themed interviews predominantly with with AEW. Shout out to John, of course, over at AEW's press team. He was giving us Malachi Black. He was giving us, musical-themed stuff, which is fine. Obviously, Soundsphere is a music platform. But what if I want to talk, Tom? What if I want to talk about mental health? What if I want to talk about fitness? What if I want to talk about that? So I thought to myself, and maybe January time, so not that long ago, why not build WrestleSphere? Why not build WrestleSphere? So WrestleSphere happened, and then we've got we post official news. We're not a dirt sheet. We don't do that. That's no disrespect to anybody watching this that is part of that. That's all good. You do you, of course. But for me, I want to post official news. So we post official AEW news, official WWE news, official news from MLW, anything like that, any companies like that want to be a part of it. If anybody's watching as a representative, we will post your news so long as it's from official sources. And of course, we do get interviews off the back of that as well. We've had, Mustafa Ali before Money in the Bank, and then of course we've just done a bunch of stuff at Money in the Bank. We've got some Impact stuff coming up next week, some potential AEW stuff heading into All In. So it's an exciting time to be a part of the Soundsphere, WrestleSphere, and Give Me a Whole Yeah family, because there's lots of stuff going on. Of course, Wobbling About and Rocking Out, you and I have got some stuff coming up too.
Yes,
so
we do.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
You talked about you and I there. I'm curious to know if you know or remember. How did we connect? Because I always forget.
I think it was Twitter. I think Twitter has been a great connector for a lot of people. I don't know what you think about Twitter these days, but I still think it's a wonderful connecting tool for people in the media, and hopefully it will continue to be so. It will continue to survive. Obviously, connecting with so many people over the weekend was wonderful for me. Connecting with you in the beginning was great. I think we'd kind of connected because I think I did an interview with Chris Van Vliet over the pandemic. That was it.
Yeah.
So we done, because obviously we started doing interviews for Give Me a Whole Yeah at first, and then we moved them over to Soundsphere. So before that, when we were doing interviews for Give Me a Whole Yeah, we interviewed Chris Van Vliet, who's obviously wonderful and a great representative from the wrestling media, and lifestyle in general, just a good dude. And you'd kind of discovered me through that, and mine and Anthony's work through that, and then Twitter was then kept us going, and you've come up with some wonderful ideas and stuff since, and watching you progress, watching you develop, way beyond what you were, in the beginning was great. And I think that's a wonderful testament to you as a someone in wrestling media, mate, for sure.
I always say I'm not in wrestling media, man. I just fell backwards into this. But
there you go.
I have said this to you off camera, but I'll say it publicly. Dom has been my mentor, guys. I don't know where I would be without Dom support, stuff like that, and things like that. But before this gets too sappy, we're going to get back to the wrestling content sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what is a match? Doesn't have to be your favorite match, but what is a match from wrestling that you're like, no matter what, I will always love this match?
Okay, mate. All right. So again, that emotional connection is key, right? Every time I describe it, this is how I love it. I'll tear up a little bit. So it was Mick Foley's title win, and it was December 29th, 1998. It was on Raw, and he beat The Rock. And it was when WCW tried to steal the ratings by spoiling the result for people.
Tony Schiavone butts in seats.
Yes, correct. Indeed. So Mick Foley won the title from The Rock, and it was the most beautiful moment, I believe, in wrestling history, for someone that grew up thinking he wasn't going to be able to do the things I'm doing now, for someone that was actively told, not through malice or anything like that, but people kind of were like, lower your expectations for what you're going to be able to do. Obviously, I was in a chair for many, many years of my life, and obviously I walk with sticks now, and people always kind of told me, you're only going to be able to do a certain amount of things. So watching a guy with long, scraggly hair who kind of walked a bit funny, obviously Mick Foley had, obviously has had years and years of toll on his body by that point. So he was, had a bit of a limp, and, he was, he didn't look like The Rock, did he? He didn't look the stereotypical wrestler. And for him to win that belt and be raised high on Billy Gunn's shoulders and all that, and the celebration and stuff, to this day, it fills me with absolute joy, Tom, because it was, and that's what I mean. The connection has to be there. I respect Anthony, and I respect these people that love pure wrestling matches. They love, they want to watch Ospreay and Danielson, and that's great. I love that too. But for me, there has to be the connection. I want to, I relate to the Eddie Kingstons, and I relate to the Mick Foleys, and I relate to those guys that don't look like the wrestlers, the everyday wrestlers, because, you want to see part of yourself in these. And not everybody does that. I understand, but you want to see part of yourself. I use wrestling as motivation and as escapism. Like I said, it is for me to find something in it. Everybody uses wrestling in different ways, and I understand that. But for me, Mick Foley was that match was that for me. It was the first time I was like, I can do anything I want to do. I'm just going to have to work a little harder. And that's one of the reasons why I'm still here, and why, even though I experience ableism, and even though I experience those things, and little comments here and there, whatever, or people that don't think I'm capable of doing stuff, I'm always going to fight. I'm always going to keep going, Tom, because there are people that believe in me, people like you. And there are people that want me to keep going, so I will. And Mick Foley and The Rock, segue back, circling round, Mick Foley and The Rock was the start of that for me.
You talked about wanting to keep going and stuff like that. I am curious to know though, and this is a question that I didn't prep you on, so I'm just going to throw you at. What do you do on those days that you're like maybe down and maybe maybe for whatever reason the video didn't get hits that you were thinking it would, as something maybe didn't get as many hits or something? What do you do to keep yourself motivated and positive?
You know me, I stay busy. I've always got things to do. But if I want to be, and I would always say, keep doing things that motivate you, keep doing things that inspire you. If, for example, we don't get certain interviews, in wrestling, there's always Waro stuff. There's always wobbling about rocking out mental health stuff to do. There's always content there. There's always music stuff. But on an emotional level, Emma's a great help. My partner Emma is wonderful. She made me a cup of tea this morning for this interview, so I'll have my cup of tea. My jam on toast, Yorkshire tea. So Emma's a wonderful help. Yeah. I've got so many wonderful people around me. So I think it comes and goes. My sort of depression, anxiety comes and goes. There are good days, there are bad days, but I always know these days as I get older, these things. What is it? This too shall pass. Which is a thing from my counselling training when I was qualifying as a counsellor. This too shall pass. It will pass. It's going to take some time, and you have to kind of write it out. And how you write it out could be watching a movie, could be drinking some tea, could be having a conversation with a friend, could be something like this. I didn't wake up in the best place this morning because I've got intense few days, and obviously we got a lot of content. But seeing you has immediately brightened up my day. So you see what I mean, little things like that. And I'm, you know me well enough to know, you could see it in my eyes. I'm not messing with you. I'm not just working you here. I'm not just working you, brother. I'm not just telling you this stuff to make you feel good or to pop some views. I legitimately do feel better when I speak to people like yourself and good friends like that. So I would say, speak to some friends, have some tea, whatever works for you, and that those are just a few things that work for me.
I understand what you're saying completely there, but to bring this back to the wrestling a little bit,
Indeed.
As we maybe look at wrapping this up pretty soon, what are 3 moments from the current wrestling product in July 2023 as we record this, and 3 moments from the past that you're like, I would always love this?
Yeah. Well, I've got so many. I think, in terms of the past, Mick Foley, Undertaker, of course, comes up, the Hell in the Cell, Mankind, Undertaker, Cactus Jack's return, when he faced Triple H is another good one. Again, a lot of my past stuff is tied to Mick Foley. My other one is excuse my hay fever if I'm snotting all over your camera. It was when the 1, 2, 3 kid Sean Waltman beat Razor Ramon on Raw in the early 90s. I think it was May 17th, 1993. Again, another underdog story. You got for people like myself, certainly myself, I love a good underdog story for the reasons I listed earlier. The 1, 2, 3 kid beating Razor Ramon, and anything Sean Waltman. Sean Waltman's another one of my favorite wrestlers. Anything the 1, 2, 3 kid did, and X-Pac did. I have no X-Pac heat. I don't know what it means.
Yeah,
I love Sean Waltman. He's great, and he was a wonderful underdog. And that Razor Ramon moment was great. In terms of the modern product, I would like to, at the time of recording in July, Eddie Kingston just won a title in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Again, Eddie Kingston from AEW, Ring of Honor. I love him so much, the Mad King. I love Eddie Kingston. I think he's a wonderful example of the alternative to the stereotypical pro wrestling. I love Eddie Kingston so much. Rosemary, or Courtney Rush as she is now, dealing with some sort of an identity crisis in Impact Wrestling. I love Rosemary, the Demon Assassin, and then of course the Courtney Rush. The other character, the dude love, I guess, to Rosemary's Cactus Jack. You know, I love what Rosemary's doing. And of course, Darby Allin and Sting as well. I love Darby Allin's dynamic with Sting. I think, you know, seeing Sting still going, you know, taking those bumps. Some people, you know, some people don't like it, but you know, I think Sting's having a great, you know, twilight run on his career. And so that's wonderful. You know, I love those moments, and those are some of my favorite ones. You know, you know as well as I do that I am waiting for Bray Wyatt's second return. You know, I hope that happens, and I hope it's wonderful, and I hope it makes a lot of people happy. So those are some of the things that I would say from the past and from the present are motivating me and interesting me in wrestling right now.
That's very cool. I did this in the wrong order, and I do apologize.
Okay.
And we talked about the wrestling media people you met over Money in the Bank weekend.
Yes.
But who are 5 people in the current wrestling media that you're like, maybe they're not getting their flowers currently, maybe they are, but maybe you feel like they deserve more? Who are 5 people in the wrestling media that you really enjoy, that you love their work?
Well, I'm gonna just honorable mentions to Sean Ross Sapp and Nick Houseman for being so lovely to me over the weekend. So they're my honorable mentions. Of course, they get their flowers, but they were lovely people. They didn't have to take so much time to chat with me, you know, and kind of, and you know, just have a just connect. So that was really nice. But in terms of the people I don't think are getting their flowers, okay, so the whole Rebellious Noise crew, the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling crew led by Scott, he is wonderful. Andy Spores from Rush on Rock is absolutely exceptional. He is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, features writers. So you know in wrestling at the moment, he's fantastic. I just want to say, from an emotional level, Sam from WrestleSphere has given me so much confidence. I have not said this on record, I've said this to him over the weekend, but without him there at this weekend, I would not have had as positive experience. We're learning, we're growing, we need to get better gear, we need to get better cameras, etc., etc. We're learning as we go, but without Sam, I would not have enjoyed it as much. Without Sam doing the features that have come from that, we would not have had so much quality content coming from you know, from this weekend. So Sam's work, Sam Smith at Dexerto, of course, one of the most you know, premier games journalists in the country, but not only that, of course, a wrestling journalist for Soundsphere. So Sam Smith, big shout out. And of course, yourself, Tom, you know, anytime that I can plug you, I will do. Anthony, of course, our good friend Anthony, Anthony Talks on YouTube. You know, I can plug Give Me a Hug, yeah, anytime, but we've done that. But Anthony Talks, you know, he's wonderful. He did a lovely interview with myself and Emma a couple of weeks
haven't checked that one out.
No, he's great. I love him so much. So yeah, so Anthony Talks, Sam, Andy Spores, Rebellious Noise, and yourself, man. Absolutely, those are my ones that come to mind. But there's so many more. So anybody that's ever watched a video or ever supported me or whatever, or ever, you know, if I've supported you and we've connected, appreciate you absolutely.
100%, man. As we look at wrapping this up, Don, the question I end this show on is, we obviously have talked about your love of wrestling and stuff like that. And yes, do you think no matter what you will? Do you think that no matter what you will always love wrestling?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I say, you know, I've taken breaks from it over the years, small breaks and things. But wrestling, again, as long as that escapism is there, I will fight for the fantasy. I will fight for the Bray Wyatts. I will fight for the Undertakers. I believe there is a place in that, because it's theatre. At the end of the day, we're watching theatre. So as long as that still exists, you know, I've debated whether there's a place for that, you know, on Gimme a Hug, yeah, before, whether there's a place for the Bray Wyatts, for the Undertakers, for the Rosemarys, and for that theatrical element. But for me, that's crucial. It's crucial to have the underdogs. It's crucial to have the theatre. It's crucial to have the art form. It's crucial to have those characters that are divisive, that split opinion, that go, oh, well, we need pure wrestling. We don't need Bray Wyatt. We need more Will Ospreays, Kenny Omegas. Can't they exist? Can't they both exist?
Can they coexist?
Yeah, can't we find places for both of them? And so for me, as long as that fantastical element, so long as the lights going out and the fireworks and the Canes and the Undertakers, the Brays, etc., that supernatural element, as long as there's an element of that, because that's that's the fantasy and the creativity that I love. As long as that still exists in some form, I will always be a fan of wrestling, for sure.
That's very cool to hear. Like I said, guys, at the start of this interview, one of probably the most passionate creators I've ever known. Someone that's been a true mentor to me And I definitely would not be in the position I'm in today without Dom. So as we wrap this up, Dom, where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
Fantastic. So you can find us wrestling stuff is at Wrestlesphere. That's wrestle and then SPHERE. And then, of course, we have the music element, Soundsphere. So SOUNDSPHERE. So Soundsphere magazine. Myself and Tom are working together on something called Wobbling About and Rocking Out. And that's waro.co.uk, WARO.co.uk. And of course, you can find us doing wrestling streams and the fun stuff, the less media stuff over on Gimme a Hull Yeah. So it's like Gimme a Hell Yeah from Stone Cold, but spell HULL because we are from Hull, East Yorkshire. So yes, go and find us on there. You can find us doing weekly streams and of course, yeah, regular content, Wrestlesphere, Soundsphere, and don't forget to check out mine and Tom's collaborative work on Waro coming up soon. So those are the things I'd like to plug.
It might be out by the time this airs.
Maybe just a thank you to everybody for watching Tom's channel, for investing energy into listening to this or watching it or consuming in whatever way you're doing. I appreciate your time and thank you from and again, I'm very big on this. Look into my eyes. I'm not working anybody here. It really means a lot to me that you guys would spend time watching this video and engaging in what I do, what Tom does. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, I say this on Twitter every time I do an episode. Thank you to Joel Pearl and Jeremy Lambert for this opportunity.
Yeah,
make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Fightful Overbooked if you like this video. Share it around. Follow me on Twitter at TomTalksTrash and subscribe to Tom Talk Trash on YouTube. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye now.